My husband didn't know I own 90% of my father-in-law's company shares. He said you can't even do housework leave and left me. I use a wheelchair. He remarried soon after. Days later my ex-husband hurried to visit me. My name is Vivian, and I live with my husband, George, and our 2-year-old son, Michael. Vivian, today marks 3 years since we started dating, doesn't it? George said, breaking the silence. Yes, it does. Time flies so fast, I replied, sensing something different in his tone. What's wrong, George? You seem a bit off, I asked with concern. Vivian, there's something I want to tell you today. George began hesitantly. I want you to marry me, he continued, echoing his proposal. Over the years, we had shared countless moments together. Initially, time with George was bliss for me. Wrapped in his kindness and thoughtfulness, I felt genuinely happy. However, as days turned into years, the daily bustle and other factors began to change our relationship. Hey, Vivian, didn't I say I wanted roast beef today? Why is it just leftovers from yesterday? George interrupted my thoughts. I'm sorry, George. I have to take care of Michael. I can't prepare anything too complicated, I explained, feeling a pang of guilt. I don't need such excuses. Parenting is just taking care of Michael, right? Stop making such a big deal out of it, George snapped, his frustration palpable. Working at my parents' company is tough. Well, I'm going to be the next president, so I have to endure it, he continued, his tone condescending. George worked at my in-laws' company, spending his days buried in work. Despite this, his efforts often seemed ordinary, and he struggled to meet his quotas. Who's making a big deal here? I don't need dinner tonight. Oh, I might not come home tonight. I have golf with a senior from work tomorrow. So take care of things at home and make sure to prepare a proper dinner tonight. Okay. George's words stung, leaving me speechless. The taste is so bland. You really can't do anything right nowadays, he remarked later that evening, further straining our already tense atmosphere. Smiles and meaningful conversations like those in our early days of marriage dwindled, replaced by George's frequent absences. Even on weekends, he prioritized outings with friends and hobbies over family time. During maternity leave, I dedicated myself to protecting our family, waking early to care for Michael and manage household chores. Despite my efforts, exhaustion and unspoken feelings toward George began to weigh heavily on me. Occasionally, I found solace in memories of our early marriage, the happy moments, and George's infectious smile. Yet it was clear that things had changed. Mom, Michael hugged me with a smile. Michael's innocent joy brought a brief respite. Lately, he had started calling me Mom more often, a small comfort in the midst of growing distance between George and me. I spent my days hoping our relationship would rekindle as Michael grew. However, deep down, I knew our bond had already cooled. One morning, as I tidied the room before George left for work, I noticed him descending from the second floor, not in his usual suit, but in casual clothes I had never seen before. They must be new. Aren't you supposed to be at work today? I asked, puzzled. I am going to work. I don't need a suit today, George replied dismissively. Seriously, stop nagging me. If I say it's fine, then it's fine. Don't butt in every time, he retorted sharply, leaving me at a loss for words. I was just asking. That's what's annoying. Anyway, I'm leaving now, George said, his departure through the front door feeling like an escape. I couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't heading to his office. Where was he going? I tried not to dwell on the answer. The distance between George and me seemed to widen with each passing day. Our conversations became scarce, tinged with a cold atmosphere. The smiles and kindness from our past felt like distant memories. Now, his words were laced with criticism and sarcasm. Whether he commented on my cooking or cleaning, his sharp remarks pierced my heart. Was it all my fault? Days were spent in self-doubt, questioning why our relationship had changed so drastically. Time passed without clarity. Despite my efforts in managing the household and caring for Michael, it never seemed enough for George. The decrease in conversation and his cold demeanor hurt deeply. His once kind and considerate words had been replaced by constant critique. Something inside me broke. My love for George faded, and memories of happier times became distant. A sense of indifference replaced the emptiness in my heart. What was the point of everything I had done so far? Mom, look, I made this. Michael's voice interrupted my thoughts. Oh, wow, that's amazing. Did you draw this? I asked, genuinely impressed. Yeah, this one's a dog, and this is a cat, Michael explained proudly. You're really good at drawing, Michael. I praised him, his smile warming my heart. As time passed, my feelings shifted. As my love for George waned, my love for Michael deepened. Watching him grow, I began seriously considering my future, specifically divorce. I couldn't continue in a relationship where George barely contributed to parenting, let alone fulfilling his role as a father. The prospect of liberation from George seemed more overwhelming than daunting. However, one concern weighed on me. On the way to a promised meeting with Michael's grandparents, we arrived at their doorstep. "Hello, Mother." "Hi, Grandma." Michael greeted them warmly. "Hello, Michael. Have you grown taller again?" Grandma exclaimed with joy. "Really? Yay." Michael cheered, delighted by her praise. "It's good to see you. Come on in, Grandma. Welcome us inside." "Thank you. I will." It was George's parents, my in-laws. Despite my frayed relationship with George, they had always been a source of comfort. They ran a nearby business and had shown unwavering kindness and support towards Michael and me. "That's right. I bought some delicious sweets at the station. I'll serve them with coffee now. Please have a seat and relax," Rima insisted kindly. "Let me help," I offered. No, it's fine. You must be tired from childcare. Just have a seat." "You need to rest when you can," Rima reassured me. "Thank you, Mother," I replied gratefully. My in-laws treated me like their own daughter. Their presence was a soothing balm. They invited us over almost every week, genuinely interested in our well-being. Their voices were always kind, like comforting music to me. They cherished their time with Michael, showering him with toys and playing with him every chance they got. I experienced their kindness deeply, feeling genuinely cherished. Sometimes, my father-in-law would take Michael to a nearby park because he knew Michael loved birds. He even bought him a bird book once. These thoughtful gestures deepened our bond. My in-laws listened attentively to my troubles, including issues with George and domestic difficulties. They responded with understanding and compassion. Their words of encouragement and advice filled me with gratitude, bringing a warm breeze into our home. Their kindness was a great help. "I'm worried if George is causing you trouble," my mother-in-law once remarked with a troubled smile. As my father-in-law played with Michael, I couldn't help but reply with a smile. Perhaps she sensed the complexity of my relationship with George. "No. It's fine," I assured her, though her worried smile lingered. My father-in-law also showed concern for my well-being, often creating new for delicious food. His thoughtful gestures and the times he comforted me while playing with Michael brought me peace. "Michael, what kind of animal shall we see next time?" my father-in-law asked playfully. "I want to see big fish next time," Michael exclaimed excitedly. "All right, let's go to the aquarium next time," my father-in-law suggested, eliciting a joyful yay for Michael. Watching them interact, I couldn't help but smile. Michael adored his grandparents, showing them a carefree smile that rarely graced his face with George. "Vivian, feel free to talk to us about anything," my mother-in-law said kindly as we were leaving. Her words pained my heart a bit. Little did she know I was contemplating divorce from George. I didn't want to burden my in-laws or sadden them. Even if my relationship with George couldn't be repaired, I cherished my bond with my in-laws and wanted Michael to continue enjoying his time with them. I was apprehensive about opening up to them about George, fearing their reaction. Just as these worries occupied my mind, an unexpected incident unfolded. My in-laws had kindly offered to take care of Michael, allowing me to enjoy a cafe outing with a friend. "It's been a long time since we've had a cafe like this, hasn't it?" my friend remarked as we sat down, sipping our coffee. "Really, Vivian? You've seemed busy recently," she observed with concern. "Have I?" I replied vaguely, trying to brush off the worry in her eyes. "Hey, Vivian, has something happened with your husband recently?" My friend hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "What do you mean?" I asked, tilting my head in confusion. "Well, actually, I saw something the other day. I saw your husband walking with a woman." "I don't know." My friend's voice trailed off, her expression troubled. For a moment, my mind went blank. Deep down, though, a part of me was at surprise. Reflecting on George's recent behavior, there had been signs I had chosen to ignore. My friend held my hand silently, her eyes conveying understanding. "Vivian, I think you should talk to George," she finally said gently. "Yeah, maybe. I haven't been myself lately," I admitted quietly, feeling the weight of her concern. "That's why I invited you to a cafe today," she explained softly. "Is that so? Sorry for worrying you." "I apologize." "Do I apologize, Vivian? Whatever decision you make about George, I'm on your side," she assured me warmly. "Thank you," I replied gratefully, parting ways with her and heading home. Although I was initially shocked by the startling truth, strangely, I felt calm now, even a bit relieved. This revelation gave me the clarity to end my relationship with George without hesitation. Imagining a future living just with Michael, despite the uncertainties, strengthened my resolve. I needed to be strong for Michael's sake. "I'm home," I announced as I entered the house. Today was exhausting. "Welcome back," George greeted me casually, not noticing my subdued demeanor. "Hey," I started, my voice steady but firm. "I've been waiting for your return." As George carelessly threw his bag on the sofa, in a low voice, I told him, George, we need to talk. Can it wait until after dinner? George replied, visibly annoyed. No. I want to talk about it now, I insisted. What now? Such a hassle. George grumbled, avoiding eye contact. Well, this situation is your fault, isn't it? I confronted him. What are you talking about? George looked puzzled, but there was a flicker of unease in his eyes. I heard from my friend. Is it true that you were walking with another woman? I pressed my voice steady. George's reaction was undeniable confirmation. His face changed color instantly, and his eyes darted around, searching for an escape. That must be a mistake. Your friend saw, right? George stammered. She heard your voice and even knows the store you two went into. Shall I confirm it with the store staff? I challenged, feeling a surge of boldness. It's useless to hide it, I continued as George struggled for words. Damn it, George spat out bitterly, his anger surfacing. Yeah, that's right. Her name is Zoe. Unlike you, she's perfect at work and housekeeping, and she's cute. She even said she likes me even though I'm married. Yeah, that just shows how attractive I am, right? George mocked, his tone cutting. I loved you, George, even though you're married. He mimicked Joe's words. Would a normal woman approach a married man like that? There must be more to it, I reasoned, but George's dismissive attitude was clear. Why should I feel bad for you and Michael? You should be ashamed for not supporting me more in my hard work, George retorted defensively. I heard from your father and mother that you hadn't even met your work quotas. Can you still say you're working hard? I shot back, feeling the weight of disappointment. I'm doing things my way. I'm going to be the next president, so don't interfere, George asserted arrogantly. I doubt you'll ever become president, I stated quietly, my resolve hardening. What did you say? George's voice rose. Fine. I'm done with you. Let's divorce, I declared firmly, unable to bear his excuses any longer. I'll divorce you and marry Zoe. Do whatever you want. George pointed at me, his words sharp and hurtful. Don't talk bad about Zoe, you're just jealous of her, aren't you? George accused, misinterpreting my stunned silence for shock. That's not the case, I replied quietly. I'll show you. You'll regret this when you come begging to me later, George shouted angrily, storming out of the house, likely heading to Zoo's place. Impulsively, I tried to follow him but tripped over a slightly lifted carpet edge. I fell hard, hitting my back against the table with a sharp pain I had never felt before. Overwhelmed by the intense agony, I groaned, unable to move. Crawling towards my smartphone nearby, I dialed for an ambulance as darkness threatened to engulf me. Mom, where am I? Michael's voice brought me back when I woke up. I lay in the hospital bed, my head spinning and my body itching all over. A nurse quickly came to my aid and called the doctor. Seeing my anxious state, they explained what had happened and tried to calm my nerves. It's okay. You'll gradually recover, the nurse assured me. Yes, thank you, I managed, trying to absorb the news. Anyway, it's good that your life isn't in danger, the doctor added. However, the results of the subsequent examination shocked me deeply. The fall had caused spinal cord damage, making it difficult for me to walk. I was informed that I would need a wheelchair, and my life would change drastically. After being discharged, life at home proved more challenging than I had anticipated. I realized I couldn't manage household chores, childcare, or even take care of myself alone. At the suggestion of my in-laws, I decided to live with them for a while. Since I couldn't rely on George for help and with Michael there too, I had no choice but to lean on their kindness. They must have been suspicious of George's absence despite my condition. I knew I had to tell them the truth soon. Just as I contemplated this, the front door of my in-laws' house swung open with a loud noise. George, where have you been? Ignoring calls when Vivian is in such a condition. My mother-in-law scolded as George entered. So she's really in a wheelchair, George scoffed, looking at my condition. A useless woman who can't do household chores or childcare is of no use to me. Hurry up and divorce me and pay me compensation for all the trouble. How can you say such a thing to Vivian? My father-in-law interjected, shocked. It's okay, Mom, Dad, I murmured weakly, feeling the weight of George's callous words. Vivian, let's get a divorce, George declared coldly. I'm sorry, Father, Mother, I whispered, tears welling up in my eyes. I couldn't stay with George anymore. Surprisingly, his cruel words didn't sting. They simply confirmed that my love for him had completely faded. Contrary to my in-laws' surprise, George seemed oddly cheerful. Good that you understand now. I can freely marry Zoe, George remarked casually. George, were you seeing another woman? My father-in-law interjected, taken aback. Yeah, so what? What's the big deal? George shrugged. Despite having Vivian, she's boring, not particularly cute, and can't handle housework or childcare properly. How can you say that? My mother-in-law exclaimed, shocked. Vivian has been trying so hard with housework and raising Michael. Yeah, yeah. Whatever. George dismissed his tone callous. Anyway, I've decided to be with so, Dad, it's time to hand over the company to me. You're getting old. Nonsense. I won't let someone like you take over the company, my father-in-law retorted firmly. Come on, who else is there but me? Anyway, let's see. So, send me the divorce papers by mail. Okay? George concluded, nonchalant. After separating from George, I started a new life. Currently, I live comfortably in a house recommended by my in-laws. With the help of a caretaker, they suggested my daily life feels easier than before. However, amidst this calm, an unexpected development awaited. One day, while peacefully passing time, the doorbell rang. Glancing at the monitor, I saw George standing outside, his face a mix of confusion and desperation. Hey, Vivian. What the hell is going on? George blurted out. George, what's up? I replied calmly, masking my surprise. I got fired from the company. I suppose Dad just keeps saying it can't be helped. George confessed, his desperation evident. Oh, dear, I murmured sympathetically. Mom and Dad are saying you're no longer our son. We're cutting ties with you, George continued, his voice tinged with disbelief. That's tough, I responded quietly, trying to process his sudden vulnerability. I didn't know about the stocks. I had no idea you own 90% of my parents' company's stocks. Why didn't you tell me? George pleaded. Because you never asked, I replied evenly. You're supposed to disclose that kind of thing even if I don't ask. So what do you want to say in the end? I asked, trying to gauge his intentions. You know what I want? I want you to cancel my dismissal. You're the one who fired me, right? If you own that much of the company, you can undo my firing, George implored desperately. That's right. Please, Vivian. I've been rejected from all other company interviews. No other company will hire me except the current one, George pleaded, his desperation palpable. If you thought that, you should have worked more seriously. I'll work seriously from now on, so please cancel my firing. You don't have to worry about being fired. Zoe can support you, can't she? Zoe dumped me the moment she realized I couldn't become president. She was only interested in my position, George admitted bitterly. I thought as much, I replied calmly, my heart unmoved. Please, Vivian, you're all I have left. Let's get married again. It would be better for you too, right? George proposed, his voice tinged with hope. I was stunned by his words. What are you even saying? You're in a wheelchair. Right? You need my help, and Michael needs his father, George pressed, trying to sway me. My anger surged at his audacity. How dare you say such things? I'm sorry, but the lady does not wish to speak with you anymore, Jack, the helper interjected firmly before I could respond. Who are you? George demanded, taken aback. I'm talking to Vivian, Jack replied sternly. As I said, the lady does not wish to converse with you. That can't be. Vivian needs me, George protested desperately. That's right, I'll say it again. I have nothing to say to you, and I don't want to see you ever again. I affirmed firmly through Jack. Why, Vivian, if you lead me to, then George began, but Jack firstly turned off the monitor. I found myself oddly captivated by Jack's rare display of anger. He was slightly older than me. Introduced as a helper by my in-laws, stern yet kind, Jack had grown close to Michael and become an indispensable part of our lives. Now what? I mused aloud, watching Jack with newfound respect. Eventually, I heard that George, abandoned by Zoe and his parents, was walking a lonely path. However, his fate no longer concerned me. Whatever his situation, he had no part in my life anymore. Supported by my in-laws and Jack, I found peace in my new home. With Jack's assistance, I managed household chores and childcare better, slowly regaining confidence in my abilities. Meeting new people and sharing smiles in my daily life, I felt my heart gradually moving in a more positive direction. Though my past with George was challenging, I had overcome it and discovered a new me. Our paths had diverged. George may be filled with regrets on his lonely path, but I was walking towards a new future. This future was filled with peaceful days and happiness surrounded by beloved people.